Patch number 4 in Albion Online for the Foundations update is about to go live on Monday, June 17th, 2024, right after the Fame Week. And we have more changes coming to Albion Online and a lot more items, a lot more weapons being nerfed slightly close to the ground. So we're going to look at all of the changes coming to Albion Online. Let's go to the balance changes. The Arcane Staffs are actually going to receive buff. The protective beam on the Enigmatic Staff, the range is going to increase from 12 meters to 14 meters. So there's that extra 2 meters for you to play around while you have that protective beam. Not really going to change a lot, but in terms of like ZVZ, this could actually be like really crucial. Your supports can be a little bit farther back, 2 meters. I don't know if that is going to change something drastic in the strategies for ZVZ players, but there's that. Let's move on to the axis, the Blood Bandit, which is the E of the battle axe. Now the recast time window for the second throw nerfed from 10 seconds to 9 seconds. You can see this actually as a buff as well, because most of the times when battle axe users use the E on their weapon, they don't usually do double E right away. Most of the veteran players, what they do is throw one axe, because it can be recast after 10 seconds. This time it's going to be recast after 9 seconds. That could actually be a buff. There is a first throw cooldown. So when you throw that, you no longer throw for double cast. You will now have to wait 1 second before you do the second throw. There is also going to be some nerfs for 0, 1, and 2 stack damages. A little bit of a nerf there. 15 from the base, 10 from the base, 5 from the base on 0, 1, and 2 stacks respectively. But the third stack damage will stay unchanged. So this is good. I don't think this ever is going to be something that people are going to worry about, because most of the time, you always want to use your E after the third stack anyways. So this is just a little bit of a nerf when it comes to people who likes to throw their axe on 0 stacks. Just a little bit of a nerf there with the 1 second cooldown as well. But this could honestly be seen as a buff, to be honest with you. For the Bloody Reap still staying on the axis, on the Infernal Scythe, the damage above 40% is going to get a little bit of a nerf here. It's around 10% nerf damage. Not really that much, but this has been really popular in ZVZ Brawl meta. The Infernal Scythe is just super, super powerful. So that's going to be nerfed a little bit. For the Whirlwind on the Great Axe, damage for consecutive hits 4 to 5. So let's look at the Great Axe actually, because I don't think this is a very popular weapon right now, because since it was nerfed like years ago. So right now, you spin around like a whirlwind, swinging your axe, dealing 192 damage per 0.5 seconds, channeling up to 2.5 seconds. It cannot be interrupted. Each consecutive hit on the same enemy increases the damage by 14. So instead of just 14 per consecutive hit, it is now going to be 25% more, which is not really that much, but it does increase 14. This is like low specs on mine. At tier 4, add 25% of that on top of the 192 physical damage per 0.5 seconds on a 25-second cooldown. This could actually be really good. Maybe expect more Great Axes in arenas and small scales just because of that additional damage. So that's pretty good. A little bit of a buff to the Great Axe. We could probably see this back in solo dungeons, maybe. Moving on to the Quarterstaffs. The Quarterstaffs, the Hurricane on the Ironclad Staff. The channel duration from 2 seconds to 3 seconds. Let's look at the Ironclad. Ironclad Staff. This is the one. Here we go. This is the Hurricane. The channel duration is from 2 seconds to 3 seconds, so 50% more channel duration. That's actually pretty good. This is the knockback, and you knock back all of your enemies, and you can move while channeling, and you can channel now 1 extra second. So I can see this actually being used in small scale for disengage. It's gonna be pretty fun. For the Tornado on the Soul Scythe, increase the projectile speed by roughly 10%. So, if you guys don't know, Tornado on the Soul Scythe is commonly used for one-shots in 2v2 Hellgates. So it is relatively easy to actually dodge the Tornado. But the good thing about the Tornado is if you get knocked up into the air, basically you are very defenseless. You have nothing that you can pop while knocked up into the air. So there's that roughly 10% more speed for the Tornado. And this is, once again, they are nerfing the Shapeshifters a little bit to the ground. Close to the ground, but rightfully so, I think. The adapting matter in all Shapeshifters, the shield duration is going to be from 1.5 to 2 seconds. Let's look at our Shapeshifters over here. The Shapeshifters, let's look at the imp. I want to look at the imp. This is the adapting matter. Basically, you use it targeted on the ground, applies a shield to yourself and up to 5 allies that absorbs 800 damage for 1.5 seconds. Now it is going to be for 2 seconds. So a little bit of a buff there, maybe trying to sway people to use a shield, but yeah, it's not going to happen. Distortion on all Shapeshifters. If you don't know what distortion is, this is a distortion. We call them the puddles. The puddles will now be nerfed by 10%. Remember, the previous patches, actually, they nerfed it probably like several patches ago. The distortion damage was rightfully so. It's just too powerful back then. They are nerfing it an additional 10% to what it is right now. I don't know. This seems like the end of an era for the Shapeshifters. I know 10% is not really that much, but it definitely will affect the human form of the Shapeshifters. The furry forms are still going to be super powerful. But talking about nerfs, the polymorphs, this is a long time coming. This has been a long time coming. All Shapeshifter staffs added the cast time from 0 to 0.4 seconds. 0.4 seconds is not that much, but there's the polymorph. And it's the one that turns you into a squirrel, a rat, or a toad. It will now have a 0.4 seconds cast time. Now, 0.4 seconds, not that much, but it may be enough for some people to not aim that properly, maybe sidestep a little bit, blink it, all right, or rush out of it if it's in the close range. But 0.4 seconds, not really that big of a deal if you have been using the Shapeshifter staff, but could turn the tide if they miss that polymorph because it has a 15 seconds cooldown. So that can be pretty good. They are nerfing Shapeshifters once again. Moving on to the spears, ladies and gents. The Razor's Edge on the Rift Glaive. They are nerfing it just a tad. Honestly, just a tad. The Rift Glaive has been really popular. I was told in ZVZs. They just pre-stack into an E, knockback, deals damage, reset, and do all of that. It's going to get a little bit of a nerf and slightly reduce hitbox from 8 meters to 7 meters as well. So reducing it so that it's not too AoE-ish, but it's still going to be used. Not a lot of damage. They're always going to be 3 charged anyways. So yeah, not a lot of damage reduction there. And also the resilience penetration from 25% to 20% as well. Moving on to the swords, the hamstring on all the swords, second ability renamed from Heroic Hamstring to Heroic Leap. It also removed the slow on the Heroic Leap, but significantly increases the damage. Now let's look at the swords. To those who are not familiar, obviously the dual swords are going to get nerfed to the ground after this patch as well. If you look at your swords, it's called this, right? Hamstring. It's now called the Heroic Leap. This is the hamstring, the first hamstring, which is called first hamstring. This is kind of confusing. So the hamstring has 2 effects. It deals damage and slows. Now they're taking out the slow, but increasing the damage. So you're no longer going to be slowed, but you are going to deal damage. The limit breaker on the Infinity Blade, damage no longer ends after the second cast and increases the damage from 105 to 112. This is the limit breaker. The first reach limits concentrate your power, increasing your movement speed by 40% while channeling. Increases all damage dealt by 35% for 7 seconds. Ending the channel enables the next combo. The damage buff no longer ends after the second cast. You will have all of your 35% damage increase for 7% even after you use your second limit breaker, which swipes your sword twice in a cone, dealing damage. The first swipe slows enemies. It no longer consumes your limit charges. So that means you are still going to get additional 35% damage even after you use your second E. That is actually nasty if you think about it, because you maintain that 35% damage for 7 seconds. Which is actually wild, okay. If only they had a system where you can actually get more crystal shards, people would use the Infinity Blade more. But until that, yeah, and crystal weapons are just going to be used for, I don't know, maybe non-lethal. Could be good for maybe arenas though. The War Gloves, the Earth Crusher and the Raven Strike. Increase the damage. Ooh, quite significant actually. Yo, this was the meta back then. Oh, look at the Raven Strike. There's the Raven Strike right here. This is the one where you, I believe, charge up, which is like a red circle around you, and then you collapse basically after you charge. They are increasing the damage on both. This was once the meta for ZVZs. This was actually really, really nice. There you go. If you channel your full duration for 2 seconds, throws enemies hit in the air for 1 second. So this was back when gloves were introduced, everyone was using the Raven Strike, and now they're buffing it a little bit. Good for the brawl meta. I would love to see this in ZVZs again. That'd be nice. Okay, for the armors, the dynamic defense on the Jacket of Tenacity, magic damage bonus reduced, physical damage bonus reduced as well. To those who don't know what the Jacket of Tenacity is, this is actually one of the most underrated weapon or item in the game. Look at the Jacket of Tenacity here. Super low cooldown. It increases your magical resistance and increases your magical damage if the opponent is using a magic weapon. If it's physical weapon, it increases your damage or increases your physical damage, increases your armor as well. So basically, you are tankier no matter who your opponent is. It increases your armor or magical resistance depending on the target. And it actually has 20 seconds cooldown as well. 20 seconds cooldown is what makes it super, super powerful. But most of the time when you see this, they're using it on Inferno Shield. So there's that, but they are nerfing it a little bit. You no longer deal 20%, 25 more percent, either magical or physical damage. It's only now 20%. And they are going to continue to nerf the Stalker Jacket. I think this is just dead. Electric Field on the Stalker Jacket, damage per tick, 28 to 26. So if you look at this, it's not that much, but all of the weapons that have been using the Stalker Jacket for additional damage, they're no longer going to deal as much. It's still okay, I would say, but with the nerf to double-bladed staffs and bloodletters, I think we can say Stalker Jackets are going to be not that popular in the mist anymore because of this just nerfed again. Moving on to the capes. The Fey Barrier on the Brazilian cape increases your shield from 230 to 275. So there you go. The Brazilian cape enjoyers, you now get more shield when you use your D ability. Avalonian cape users though, it's a little bit of a nerf. The Force Pulse on the Avalonian cape, you don't really use it for the damage. If you want damage, you want to use Thetford cape really for the damage. But the Avalonian cape, the effect that it has really is the reduced damage, which is really good. Not really the additional damage that you get from it. So this is nothing basically. This could be good though. This could be good for the Brazilian capes. So that is it for the additional nerfs and buffs to the patch number 4. Remember last week, we also had this. This was the Foundation patch number 4. I'm assuming, and I think it's safe to assume that this is on top, right? These changes are on top of this because they didn't say anything about it, but I'm pretty sure that's on top of this. It would be pretty weird if they launched this or gave us this 2 weeks ago and then came with a new update 2 weeks later and then they won't add this. That'd be just so weird because we covered this 2 weeks ago. But just that'd be weird. Okay, so that's it. What are you guys' thoughts on the new patch? It is going to come on June 17th, right after the Fame buff. Let me know in the comment section below. Or better yet, join us live on Twitch at twitch.tv/Burnstone.